put it on the track. You could hear that whistle blow 100 miles. He screamed, "Oh, now Lottie me, and oh, now Lottie my." You could hear that whistle blow 100 miles. You should have been downtown. You could have heard the train go down. You could hear that whistle blow 100 miles. Oh, Lottie me, and oh, now Lottie my. You can hear that whistle blow 100 miles. Good. Good. Yay. Hi, I'm Brandon.
And I'm Sarah, and this is our floating tiny house on Lake Fontana in the Great Smoky Mountains.
So we're on a floating house on the lake here. The house itself is 360 square feet, and the open dock space outside is 400 square feet. We're sitting on encapsulated styrofoam floats, which are black plastic float tubs, and they hold this house up and keep it from sinking.
Legally, this is referred to as a floating cabin, and one of the critical differences between this and a proper houseboat is that this is not a navigable vessel. So not only does that mean that it doesn't have a motor, of course, but it also doesn't have things like a hull or a bilge or navigation systems. And so one reason why that's important is because unlike a boat, you can't poke a hole in this and sink it. You know, we don't have the same risk factor for sinking as boats do. It would be very, very challenging to sink one of these. It's more of a slow, neglectful process over decades as opposed to one catastrophic thing that can go wrong.
And this houseboat is moored off of 4 corners into the rock bed. So this got anchor bolts into the rocks. This house is tied to it, and we adjust this house to come up 60 feet and down 60 feet. We're partially off the grid. We do not have power coming into this house, so we run a lithium solar system, and on our roof we have 1,600 watts of solar coming into batteries, and that pretty much keeps us going 99% of the time. We have a backup generator if we need to charge the lithium, so mainly off the grid, but we do bring city water in, and there's city water run across all the mooring balls, pipes 20 feet below, and it comes to the house. So being on a mooring and having city water is huge.
And it just so happens that our mooring fee that we pay each year to have the privilege to be on this lake includes our city water fee, whether we're using it or not.
So yearly, to be on a mooring here in this harbor, it's $5,000 a year. That gives you access to a resort that we're at with swimming pools and restaurants, dinghy dock for your little dinghy to get you back and forth to your floating house. And it gives you one of these views like this. So well worth the money. So come with us, we'll show you around the house. This is Aiko. She's 9 years old. She's been living on boats her whole life. She's definitely a boat dog. On a good rainy summer day, we sit down in our little swing chairs here that's under our awning and just kind of take it easy. Sometimes we got coffee, sometimes we got rum.
And one thing that we love about these chairs is everything else on our dock, we have to be very careful about the weight or how we're securing it, because a storm could come at any moment and take it from us, and that's definitely happened in the past. It can be really frustrating, but the nice thing about these is that they're always inherently attached to the dock, and we don't have to worry about wind or weather. They're always going to stick with us because they can't blow off the dock since they're tied to our rafters here.
So y'all come with us, we'll take you inside our little tiny home, show you how we live. All right, welcome in our little tiny home. We're sitting in a 20 by 18 house, so 20 feet wide, 18 feet long. And we've got this house on a rake. It's 14 feet tall in the front, 12 feet in the back, which is a snow load rating for framing.
People wonder, why did you put the low part of the ceiling where the loft is? And we did that purposefully because we wanted the high ceilings where we were going to be spending most of our time, because it just adds to the overall spaciousness and the open feel of the house to have those high ceilings.
This house was actually designed for this cove, and the reason I'm going to say that is this cove itself has a special breeze called B-cove breeze, and out of this mountain holler there's this cold air all summer at night that blows through here. So passively we wanted that cold air to come through these top windows and these back windows and then eat right out the front, and that heat pushes through this thing. It's pretty wild in the summer nights. You need 3 blankets to lay in this house when you've got the windows open, so it's actually worked out really great for us. So behind us is our living room area. We got the man couch here. It's a big leather sofa, substitutes my time out spot if Sarah kicks me out of the bedroom. It's a little big for the space, but I love it and I wanted it here. We saw this cool ladder shelf thing to get into the loft on Pinterest or one of those apps, no telling, and I spent a little bit of time and we built this.
These kind of functional but also decorative stairs that go up to our loft, which, like I said, we don't access it that much, so that's why we wanted this to be not only functional but also helpful space and useful for us in the meantime. Generally, when we're using the loft, it's either for extra storage or for the occasional guests.
On a hot summer day or when it's 10 degrees outside, we do have an air conditioner heating unit. It's part of our battery systems. We run EcoFlow batteries. Part of that system comes with its own air conditioner heater. The AC unit runs 420 watts and the heating unit is 375 watts. It's super efficient, and for this space it actually works very well.
One of our tiny homestead goals is to create a permanent parking spot for our tiny house on wheels. So we're going to move the house over here to a sunnier side of the property just so we can take the tiny house off grid. And we really think that Blue Eddy has the power station system we need. This is the new AC200L. It has a high power output and capacity with 2400 watts and 2048 watt hours. And with the power lifting mode, you can boost to an amazing 3600 watts. We can plug our 30 amp tiny house right into the AC200L. Everything that can be powered in our tiny house is turned on right now. The fridge, the TV, the AC, and the lights. It has more than enough power to run our low consumption tiny home full time, especially with its high 1200 watt solar input capability. But in the winter, if we find that we need more power, we can upgrade with an expansion battery or two. So that'll give us up to 8,000 kilowatt hours. Basically, limitless power. To learn more about how the Blue Eddy AC200L can power your tiny house or RV, visit the link in the description below and use our code to save big.
Now, if y'all come with me, we're going to head over to the bedroom just behind this wall. So this is our master. This is where Brandon and I sleep, and then also we have the dresser in here. Our bed is kind of a fun feature in this house because upon first glance, it appears to be floating, which is kind of fun with it being a floating house. But these ropes are actually not load bearing. This is a floating bed in the sense that there's a recessed space, because if you think about it, that would be kind of really annoying to have a bed that's constantly banging around when the house is moving as it does. But we like the look of it and the nautical feel of adding the ropes, so that was kind of a fun touch. In addition to our dresser here, the recessed bed base also provides a little bit of an opportunity for extra storage, especially on the back end and on the side that's not visible when you walk in the room. So we put a lot of our shoes just underneath the bed, tucked in, and then as well as all of our clothes, we share this armoire. One of the best things about living in a tiny house, you know, the more space you have, the more stuff you're going to fill it with. So we love having our favorite pieces of clothing, really quality pieces like my grandmother's overalls here, and just being really content and satisfied with what we do have. So, and then behind me here, we've also got the coolest window in the house. It's this awesome, huge crank open window, which we chose because it maximizes the potential to funnel the breeze through the house. If it's coming straight through, but also if it's blowing from side to side, then it can oftentimes hit that window and then kind of funnel into the house that way. So on those hot, sticky summer nights, that thing is like an AC unit in and of itself. It's awesome. And also underneath the loft here on the other side of the bedroom, we've got the bathroom.
So if you come with me in here, I'll show you where we scrub all the dirt off. So we're going to look at this floating vanity that I built. This was one of the first floating ones that I did, and really saves a lot of money doing it this way than just going and buying a vanity. Plus you can make it fit the space you're working in. Nice little open sink here, in-wall mounted faucets. Pretty cool little gig, gives us 2 shelves. Put our rum in here so when we brush our teeth we can take a shot, make sure we're still going good. Everybody needs some fake grass in their bathroom. Walking on over, we wanted a bathtub, and I didn't want to go buy a bathtub, so we went to the good old feed and seed store and got a horse trough. And we proceeded to paint it white. Now we have a 100-gallon bathtub, which at 8 pounds a gallon, that's 800 pounds of water. So this side of the house, when we fill this up, it sinks down a little bit because that's a lot of weight. Every little home needs a little baby washer and dryer. This thing we've had in a couple of different tiny homes. We love it. It cleans your clothes really well, but it makes them wrinkled. So your friends just need to know that if you steam dry your clothes, you're going to be wrinkled. Pretty economical if you're running off solar power. The washing machine part of it will run about 450 watts, which is not a lot of power consumption if your batteries are pretty big. Now, if you dry clothes with this, you're getting into 1500 watts, and that's when you're going to need a substantial system to dry. In these floating houses, we don't have regular toilets. We have to go with a marine style toilet. Really just push button, done. It has to grind up whatever you do whenever you go to the bathroom and then put it in a holding tank. The idea behind this is you get a lot of water in a floating house, so we run a dehumidifier. We fill it up once a day, and then we're like, cool, we've got all the water out of the house. But definitely good in the winter time to pull all the moisture out when all the windows are closed, because these things will build up a lot of moisture. You'll get some mold issues.
So we've been together for about 4 years, and we've been living here on the water for about 3 of that. We met kind of indirectly through work. Brandon was working at the marina that he manages, and I was working for the National Park Service. We keep our boats at that marina, so we kind of met in passing through our respective jobs. And then we went to the ER on our first date.
What?
Yep, there was that.
Explain.
Our first date, I invited Sarah to go wake surfing. It worked. And we went out wake surfing, and the first thing she did, the surfboard came and hit her in the lip, and if you've ever seen Predator, it just split her lip to her nose like that, and she looked just like Predator.
Split lip, broken nose, concussion, and
I offered to super glue it so we could keep drinking beer.
It was
and
so embarrassing.
She wouldn't let me, so we went to the ER.
yeah,
And that's when I got to talk to her parents for the first time on the
first date. And the rest was history.
Yep. So I had a house, the only house I've ever owned, and it was 1,000 square feet, and we lived there for a year, and she's super hard-headed, so we argued a lot. And when we moved on the lake and moved into a 225 square foot tiny floating house, we quit arguing, all the fights stopped, and our relationship got better. And then we started building them, which made the fights fun. But it actually worked out in the opposite. Most people would think, oh, I'll kill you if I'm in this little small area. But our relationship went the other direction.
I think you just have to learn how to communicate better, because you can't just slam the door and go to another area in the house or something. You just really have to figure out how to work through things, and it was
and we don't
so
put
good for
doors
us.
in the houses, so she can't
Yeah, we don't
slam
even
them
have
and go
doors,
to her room.
It's been really, really good for our relationship, not only to be in a tiny house, but I think also to be on the water and be, you know, in such a peaceful environment. It's been good for us as individuals, and that's always good for a relationship.
So a lot of the challenges on floating houses most people don't ever think about is it's not all sunshine and Mai Tai drinks. It's storms, raining. You might be at 5 in the morning needing to go to work and it's blowing 60 miles an hour. And it takes a different breed to want to do stuff like that. Or you might be sitting here enjoying your day and some boat cranks up and take off wide open beside you and your dog's barking and
because we own our house, but we don't own the water, we don't own the land. That's kind of a unique situation too, is that sometimes we might have somebody fishing in what we consider our backyard. That's kind of an adjustment, but certainly not something that we mind, just something that might be a little bit different for people than a normal house. So here we are in the kitchen. I spent a lot of time here. This was a big upgrade from our last house. We had very little counter space and I made it work, but that was something that I wanted to change in this house, was having just a little bit more counter space to work with. One thing that I've really gotten into recently is baking sourdough bread. Yes, I'm sorry, I'm one of those. So it's really nice to have some extra counter space. At least, for a tiny house, this feels like a lot of counter space to do my baking and all of my bread work here. Our refrigerator here runs off either propane or electric, just depending on our need. In the summertime, when we have abundant solar energy, we'll switch it over to electric so we're not wasting propane. And then in the wintertime, when things might be a little bit more scarce, we'll switch it over to propane. And it's also nice to have a backup in case we were to run out of propane or in case we run out of solar energy. There's always another option so we don't, lose our food that's in there. So about every 2 to 3 months, we have to refill our 100-pound propane cylinder, and that costs $75. I love my teal cabinets. We're not super big on color, so this was kind of daring for us, but it has turned out so great, and we love them. They're just a really fun pop of color in the house. We didn't do cabinets like this on the top because personally we feel like having upper cabinets makes the space feel a little bit more closed in comparison to open shelving. But with open shelving, because you can see everything, sometimes it can feel cluttered. So we try our best to use totes and baskets and little things that kind of help organize and at least to the naked eye, keep that space from looking cluttered while still being functional and, again, open. And so in this little corner here, we have our Lazy Susan, which is also kind of our pantry, basically. So that was another upgrade from the last house. We had just open shelving, and so we had chips and cans and things like that, and it just wasn't nearly as cute. So to the right of the Lazy Susan, we have my favorite feature in this whole kitchen, our awesome hammered copper sink. This is a Facebook Marketplace find that we had for $350, including the fixture. So that was just the steal of the century. We were elated when we saw that, had to get it. The lady was selling it because she didn't like having to clean it, because copper sinks do require a little bit more maintenance and cleaning than porcelain or other material. But to me, it's totally worth it because, just look at it. And especially in contrast with the teal cabinets, I think it is just gorgeous. I love being in here and seeing this every day. So we have our stove here, which runs on propane. It's relatively small, but it suits our needs. We're not usually cooking for 8 to 10 people. It's just the two of us more often than not, so it is perfectly good for us. Here in the back corner of the kitchen, we've got our battery storage box, which also doubles as kind of bonus counter space. We set a lot of things on here, groceries when I come in, or plates as I'm plating off of the stove. It's just really helpful to have extra surface area to work with. But of course, its main function is storage for our batteries for our solar system, as well as tools, construction materials, things like that you don't really want out in the open so much. And then on the other side of the power box, we've got our little ladder that goes up to what we call our mini loft. So that's also not somewhere that we're accessing very often. Just some storage up there right now, although I have a fun dream of making that kind of a little reading nook or something like that in the future. But for now, we're just using it as storage space because we did have to build this egress into the house. Ideally, we wouldn't have had this big jut in. We would have just left this open, maybe had a kitchen island, something like that. But it was required in our regulations to have a 24 square foot egress, so we figured we'd make best use of it as we could by at least making the top of that functional and accessible.
So the floating houses are different all over the world. A lot of floating houses are slip houses, and when they're in a slip, there's no regulations on them because it's part of a marina and you can put them in that marina slips. These floating houses are on moorings out in the lake, and they're permitted to be here through whatever entity runs that lake. So there's all kind of rules on the sizes of them, how the wastewater is dumped. This lake, it was different, so they had something called the Sunset Act, the government said, all right, take them off the lake, they've got to be gone. And in 2016, Obama wrote the WIN Act, and it was really nothing to do with us on floating houses, but somehow we got thrown in the bottom, and it allowed us to be on the lakes indefinitely if we met a new code.
The regulations ensure that these are more environmentally friendly and not detrimental to the lake and the watershed.
This is the first floating house that has been built to the blue placard specifications. I worked all the kinks out with TVA.
And TVA is the Tennessee Valley Authority. That's the power company that owns this lake, amongst other lakes where these floating cabins are allowed.
And these floating houses are really tough to build because you're building on the water. Land pushes back different than water. Weight in one area makes the house lean. There's all kinds of issues and thoughts that you got to go through. Sarah and I did all the labor building this except for the framework. We had framers come in and frame up the house for us. Without labor, you're getting into around 100 grand to put one of these together. You add your labor and the amount of time it takes to bring material back and forth, and then add in the fact that the closest Lowe's from here is an hour and a half one way. So every time you need something, you got to drive 3 hours, and that doesn't even count the time in the store. When you're building on the water, it's not like you have this laydown yard of all your parts. You can go get enough stuff that you can stack on the deck if you have a deck, and then you can build that project, then haul off all the material that's extra, then you start the next. So it's logistically, it takes a damn strong will to want to do something like this.
The fact that we were able to get this entire house built in 2.5 months, less.
2 months and a week.
Was quite a feat, but we were really rushing because we were trying to sell the last house to be able to fund this one. One big issue that we have on this lake, in part because of the houseboats, is trash. Trash is a huge issue, not only from boaters and off the roadways, but also from these houseboats. They used to have a styrofoam underneath them. That's what floated them in the styrofoam. It wasn't encapsulated or attached to the house in any permanent way, so as you can imagine, it would tend to just chunk off and also disintegrate into the water, and became a huge trash issue. And so 6 years ago, Brandon founded a cleanup and decided to do something about it. The very first time that they went out, it was, 3 days, and they got 22,000 pounds of trash with just 12 people. So it's very small, but a huge impact already. And then it just gained momentum every year. And what are you up to now?
We are up to about 400,000 pounds of trash, 18 days of work. So far, it's the biggest cleanup in any national park in history. And we also, last year, the governor of this state decided to give us an award, Public Lands Conservationist of the Year, and we went down to Raleigh and actually met a lot of really cool people that helped us with some funding, because it's not cheap to pull 400,000 pounds of trash out of a remote area. And the National Park Service helps us out a lot, obviously, because we're cleaning up the park. And really, in all actuality, this place needed help. It was 75 years of neglect, and we've got half the lake clean, so we got the other half to go, but it's a win-win. It's a give back for this place to letting us be here.
In the near future, we have some exciting plans going on. I am engaged, and so we're going to get married in August, and we see ourselves being in this house for the foreseeable near future. And then at some point, after Aiko passes, she is 9 years old, so we hope she has several more good years, but never know. And so when Aiko passes, we have this grand adventure that we're planning to go sail around the world. So I'm kind of getting my feet wet, no pun intended, with living on the water, but our ultimate goal is to spend, who knows, 10, 20 years just slow cruising and traveling around the world.
30 years.
Hey, however long it takes, however long we want to be out there. It's just going to be the adventure of a lifetime, working along the way if we need to. We have a YouTube channel that we're building up, and hopefully that'll provide a good source of income and, you know, some entertaining content as well. But we definitely just want to share about life on the water in all of its forms.
Thank you for watching our video and for stopping by Tiny House Expedition. I'm Alexis.
And I'm Christian. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And for more tiny home tours and stories, click the videos below.
And join us on Instagram for bonus content,
including face-to-face conversations with us. We hope to see you there.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.